With today's matches as Fnatic and Splyce hit the rift.
Roses are red, violets are blue. You better be ready, because Vedius coming for you! Let's go!
Ladies and gentlemen.
Happy Valentine's Day, one day belated to everyone out there. Vedius, I didn't ask you this yesterday, but will you be my Valentine?
Of course, my friend. How could I not?
Kiss me, Vedi.
No.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Fnatic up against Splyce is our first game of the day, and what a day it's going to be. We talked a lot on the Analyst desk about how patch 9.3 are going to change things for both these teams, and I think that always has to start off with the draft.
Yeah, we're really curious to see how the draft will evolve for Fnatic very specifically, because we've seen them have a couple of issues with their draft, going much more towards things like the scaling options, not really having much of an early game impact, and now with crit AD carries being more relevant, we'll see if they put more of a priority on it. And that brings into question, with Lucian and Ezreal kind of rising in power, still rather being very, very strong, will they see themselves on the ban list, or will they still be very early first rotations for both these teams?
That is the question. Already Lucian taken away from by Splyce from Rekkles. So alongside that, we have the Karthus and the Sylas ban coming out from Fnatic on the blue side, and an Urgot ban. So Sheffius is going to be a little bit disappointed. There's no extra Urgot seasoning in this game.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that he's going to be seen banned off the table. He received no balance changes on patch 9.3, so he is, like, all of his big answers kind of got taken off the board with things like Aurelia. And of course, Rise Kennen still very good. The one we did see over in the LCK is that Yorick pick. Oh, and just as the ban comes through, I was really excited to see it potentially come out, especially in the hands of someone like Vizicsacsi or Bwipo. But Fnatic is saying, no, we're not interested in dealing with that. That's going to be banned away.
Alongside that, the Tristana ban against Rekkles, one of his most played in the LEC all-time. I think he has a 75% win rate on that as well, so not surprised to see it banned away. However, it does leave that Ezreal open that you talked about earlier on, and even something like the Kai'Sa if you really want to go down that route.
I think the weird thing about Kai'Sa right now is some people have mixed opinions about what the optimal build path is for her, because the Storm Razors did take a bit of a hit and is not as strong as it was before, and now what you kind of build as a first item on her, many AD carries are still debating. But it looks like Fnatic are prioritizing getting a strong support down towards the bot side of the map. We have seen things like Pyke act as an answer. Morgana is sometimes often picked into the Braum as well. Occasionally we do see a Thresh drafted, but we'll see what Norskeren is gearing towards. And I love this blind pick Kennen from Splyce. We heard Sheffius talking about it earlier on. Adds a lot of flavor to the draft, but largely because the only thing that can really answer him is the Jayce. And so the question mark here is, will Bwipo feel confident enough in his Jayce to be able to bring it into Vizicsacsi's Kennen?
Bwipo has never been one to bandy down from a fight. He always stands up and fights in that top lane if needed. There's the Thresh that you talked about for Norskeren down towards that bottom lane. Very interested to see support so highly prioritized on this patch. It's been a while since the days of the Alistair first pick. To see a Braum first pick is intriguing to me. It
surprises me. It means their engage is going to have to come from somewhere else. Remember that Sejuani is still very relevant on the current patch. Could be something that Broxah wants to try and get his hands on early on, but we already talked a little bit about the Jayce, and there it is. Likely going to be in the hands of Bwipo up towards the top side of the map. Many pros' current consensus is that he is the S tier right now. He's something that can be played in both mid and top. He doesn't really have that many bad matchups. He's extremely strong in the side lane and doesn't really have many champions that can outduel him, and he even offers a lot of teamfight value and utility because things like the Shock Blast, the poke that he brings, the burst damage. Overall, he's a very well-rounded champion right now.
A lot of priority put on Bwipo for Fnatic then. We'll have to see how he is able to translate that into game state. There's the Sivir as well for Rekkles, going towards one of those 3-item AD carries, something we've already seen him play this split as well.
And he's blind picking it as well. And I think that's because they're not afraid to have it go up against something like the Ezreal, but that's going to be an insta-lock Jinx that we do see coming in from the draft right now. And this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
We're going more towards the hyper carry end of things.
You could say we're getting excited with this Jinx pick.
We could say that. Good one, Medic. I like that reference.
Thank you.
I think Jinx is really fun when she gets that through items, because things like the Runans, the fact that you can proc all 3 of the rockets and do huge teamfight damage, very, very strong. We'll see how she does in the laning phase. Definitely haven't seen a Jinx for a while, aside from the demolition that we saw from last week in Fnatic's game.
Yeah, Jinx didn't work out too well.
Not too well. Hopefully it'll be better this time around as Kobbe gets his hands on it. Now we're moving into the second phase, Medic.
That we are. Nocturne banned away by Fnatic. Splyce is going to get rid of a jungler themselves as well. In the form of the Lissandra, is Broxah's most played and one of the champions he was so well known at Worlds for. Would be interested to see if we see more of the jungle pinched out here in this second rotation of the second ban phase.
I was just going to mention a good spot there, Medic. Like Sejuani going to be taken off the board means that kind of engage options, hard crowd control is kind of lacking from Fnatic right now. They do still have the Jayce gate plus the Sivir ultimate to actually run down their opponents to start off a fight, but the CC is somewhat lacking for them right now outside of just the Braum. So I wonder if they'll put much value on champions like the Zoe. Over in the LCK, she's risen in popularity with some of the Lissandra nerfs that came through, and with Galio falling off on previous patches, she's just become one of the go-to mid laners right now, alongside Cassio, who is still available right now.
Snuck all the way through the pick and ban so far. There's the Jarvan. Expect that to be in the jungle for Xerxe. Could have been a support Jarvan, of course, but with the Thresh already locked in, you have to think that will go to the jungle. And now Fnatic do have to show their hand a little bit here. You're blind picking your mid laner, and you need to lock in a jungle position. Yeah,
so thinking about what junglers are left available, really, the pool has been slimmed down quite a lot. Xin Zhao is still a potential option. Kha'Zix is another one that Broxah could go for, both very early game focused junglers, and Olaf is another one that's still very relevant in the current meta, but not really the best pick against the Jarvan. Many in solo queue games, many people like to run the Ghost and you can lock him in and then he suddenly can't do anything. But right now they are still prioritizing that Lissandra. So we talked about their lack of crowd control. They are going to make up for that with the Lissandra pick here. And lo and behold, Fnatic going very much towards those scaling picks that we were talking about. And the question is, will it still work in the current meta going up against this kind of composition? I think that it could, but I like this adaptation. I prefer this much, much more. I think it means that Broxah has way more agency in terms of the early game. He can play around the Lissandra lane, which has a lot of setup. And with the early game damage from Olaf means that you have a very clear lane that you can look to play around. And Broxah, he was always known, especially at the World Championship, for being a very active early game jungler, and I think many Fnatic fans want to see a return of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of Fnatic fans want to see a return to winning ways from the Fnatic squad, coming into the end of the first half of the season at 2-6. Final pick is the Cassiopeia that we said had snuck all the way through picks and bans. Not going to be a bot lane Cassio, instead going to mid in the hands of Humanoid. Will be the second time he's played at this split. Last time they did lose, but he had an okay performance on the Snake.
And what I see from this draft is good scaling on both sides. Sivir, Jinx, great late game hyper carries. You also have the ability to split push with both the Kennen and the Jayce. Very similar compositions, really, from both sides. And I think what we're going to see in this game, Medic, is who will be able to find that early game lead first? Will it be Xerxe on the Jarvan, or will it be Broxah on the Olaf? Which lanes will they look to prioritize? You would ideally want your split pushers, so the Kennen or the Jayce, to get ahead in the early game if possible. But also, how will these team fights play out? Because we know that both these teams have struggled in the mid game throughout this split, and who will they be able to rectify some of the mistakes that they've made to transition to strong team fights, and ultimately who has the better team fighting with two very solid team fight comps?
We have seen Splyce get towards the late game, and in the majority of their games this split have the longest game time of all the teams in the LEC, sitting at 38 minutes 56 seconds.
Average game time.
Average game time. Average game time. Last week they had two 45-minute games as well, which is just shows that they are able to get to that late game portion. Their team fighting has been pretty on point. Fnatic have struggled to get there, but historically, Fnatic have always been a team that has very good late game team fights.
That has been the history for them. However, right now, we haven't been able to see it because they've never really been able to get to that point in the game, so maybe things can change. We're approaching the halfway point in the LEC, ladies and gentlemen. This will be the final game for Fnatic in the first round robin, and they'll be going up against Splyce. A much-needed win for them, whereas Splyce, they want to keep fighting for that top 3, top 4 spot, and a win for them will help solidify them there. We're guaranteed a pretty exciting game.
There we are. For more on the draft, let's hear from Laure and Fnatic's coach.
So no surprise from you guys from seeing pressure in the late game with some late game damage, but where do you guys need to strike to get the early game advantage, especially with the Olaf pick?
I think with Vizicsacsi blinding Kennen, he gave us a big opportunity to pick Jayce, and that's a very strong winning lane, so that's something we can play around in the early game.
I wish you good luck on that, and now let's dive back directly into the game.
Straight on into Summoner's Rift. Thank you very much, Laure, for that, and interesting words from YoungBuck.
Yeah, we talked about it in the draft. Blind picking the Kennen opened them up to grab themselves a strong matchup in the top side. And the thing about Jayce is, because of the range that he has, he actually trades very well against champions like Kennen, especially in the early levels. And later on into the game, in 1v1, he'll actually have a pretty significant advantage, because he can just grab himself the Hex Drinker, mitigate a lot of the burst that Kennen is able to throw out. And that means that he's just going to keep scaling, be a big threat, and you would imagine that he's going to go for that big lethality build, which means that his poke is going to be very potent later on as well. So what you kind of want to see from Splyce is, we talked about it, play around the top side of the map. Try and put Bwipo behind so that Vizicsacsi can have that lead. And then maybe that's a lane that they don't have to worry too much about. Whereas for Fnatic, they kind of have a couple of options. They could play around mids. They could try and utilize the fact that Nemesis has a lot of crowd control and try and shut down Humanoid. They could also just invest more into Bwipo, just keep him alive if he's guaranteed a winning lane matchup. As long as Broxah just hangs around and stops Xerxe from ganking, that means they can just slowly build up a bigger lead and scale up. I'd be surprised if he tries to gank bot. However, Jinx is always a great carry to gank because she doesn't have that much mobility, nor does she have that many defensive tools. So I think that Broxah has quite a lot of options. We just want to see it because we haven't really seen a lot of early game action from Broxah.
See both junglers starting on their blue buff. Xerxe just going to get that. He actually went red towards blue, and now he's going to get that scuttle crept down towards the bottom side. Broxah only done blue in the Gromp. A little bit of trading in the bottom lane, but not too much going on as of yet. I want to just come back to that top lane because I see that Chachi's gone for the phase rush here instead of the Kleptomancy on the Kennen. And often we do see that Kleptomancy the keystone of choice.
So the reason why you wouldn't run Kleptomancy in this matchup is because Kennen is expected to lose it, which means that he's not going to get as much free farm as he would typically like. Now, I would want to talk about that more, but we've got to keep our eyes on Xerxe in the bot lane.
Yeah, he'll be waiting for his EQ to come back up before he goes for this fight. See, Norskeren does have the flash if he wants to go in with the Flay. Rekkles and Hylissang stepping back, flash play onto Hylissang. Still has his own flash to get away, jumps away. Rekkles uses the spell shoot perfectly, has to flash away. Here comes the teleport though. Fnatic wants to take the fight in the bottom lane as Xerxe. Concussive blows is blocking on him, double teleport. Nemesis gets the root down only onto Norskeren. Glacial pass for the follow up, there's the stun. And now Xerxe might be caught out, EQ away. Double TP burn here, remember Norskeren almost stunned up. He will get locked down underneath the tower, and that's first blood to Fnatic.
We wanted to see early game action from Fnatic, and they said, nope, you're not shutting our bot lane down anymore. 2 teleports were invested from both Nemesis and Bwipo to guarantee a first blood into Fnatic's back pocket. This will also help Rekkles and Hylissang secure themselves the first turret planing of the game. Early game already looking good for Fnatic.
So good for Fnatic. They'll also get this wave. Waves crashing into the Splyce tower means that Jinx will be set so far behind. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this game develops. Fnatic's bot lane has a lead, has an advantage. Can they now utilize that to snowball the game away from Splyce?
And Broxah is even able to steal away some of the enemy jungle camps. Now, this could hurt Bwipo's lane, given that he did invest his TP bot. Vizicsacsi now has a level advantage. Same for Humanoid in mid. I believe he was even able to get a base off as well, so he's been able to match the items coming out from Nemesis. And he still has a pretty big wave that he can pick up for himself. So both the solo laners from Splyce will benefit from the teleport usage as well. And a lot of summoner spells were used, so it's really important for Splyce right now to look to try and punish the lack of summoner spells available on the side of Fnatic, because that's how they come back into the game in this early stages. Fnatic already find themselves in a 1,000 gold lead.
It's a strong early lead for Fnatic coming out of the gate swinging, but you can, as you said, you know, Chachi built up a little bit of a CS lead in the top lane. Bwipo's been able to answer that once he got back into the lane. Here comes Hylissang, will land the Winter's Bite. Norskeren is just around the corner, and Humanoid just dodges away. Doesn't have to burn any summoners to escape from that little bit of a support gank.
So, kind of taking stock of what happened there, you know, just the fact that 2 teleports were invested towards the bot side of the map. I feel like it was a bit of an overcommitment, but I think we recognize that they wouldn't have got that first blood if they hadn't sent both members down. The problems that it result in, we already talked about in terms of the 2 solo laners, but they're actually doing okay in terms of farm. We will keep track of the gold, which is actually in Bwipo's favor right now because he was, of course, the one that picked up that first blood. And in terms of experience, he is still even with Vizicsacsi. The big discrepancy right now is starting to develop in the bot side of the map where there is a big CS advantage building up for Rekkles, and things are getting better for them in terms of gold, as you see Broxah now ganking mid.
Miasma comes down, Humanoid just trying to run away, will escape. The phase rush on the Cassiopeia, a lot of movement speed coming out from that, and the Noxious Blast, of course.
So this is what we talked about as well. Broxah has a lot of options. His first gank is actually around the mid lane. They want to try and burn the cleanse away from Humanoid to try and set something up. I love how defensive Bwipo's playing, but he gets a little too close.
EQ doesn't land, looking for the Mark of the Storm, can't quite connect with that stun, and Bwipo gets away. That's a lot stronger from Bwipo because before we have seen him overextend in that top lane, especially in weeks 1 through 3. He tended to step a little bit too far up, but he knew Broxah's on this side of the map as well, looking to get Chachi away from this, but Chachi hitting 6 means that he has that slicing maelstrom now.
go for an all-in, but he is worried about the positioning of Broxah. And again, like, Fnatic looking great in this early game so far. They managed to dissuade or stop entirely the early gank that Xerxe tried to set up at level 2 towards the bot side of the map. He's now also, Broxah has been able to stop the top side gank from Xerxe as well, and they've allowed Bwipo to just slowly keep that lead that he has, and now he's hit level 6 for himself. And in terms of like pressure, that doesn't really change a lot, but it's still the valuable experience going in his back pocket, and Fnatic looking great so far in this early game.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we look at how Fnatic are doing in terms of the tournament standing as well, because there has been a lot of talking about how they're only 2-6, they've been really struggling. Usually, at the halfway point in a split, they're winning about 2/3 of the game. On a very good split, they win 81%. In a very bad split, they win about 47%. At the moment, 2 out of 6, nowhere near that. They're winning about 24% of their games, and they are just really struggling, or 25%, really struggling to be the Fnatic of old.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the dark ages of Fnatic, definitely in recent history anyway, and even though they've had lots of roster changes, arguably even more impactful roster changes in the past, you've seen that they've even still been able to find decent success.
Oh, Chachi's going to teleport straight into Broxah here. Has the slicing mountain, will pop it straight away. Has the flash as well, gets the double stun. Doesn't need to use the flash, but teleported in, lost half his health immediately because Broxah was in the right position again.
He also lost his ultimate there, which means that the amount of kill pressure he has towards the top side of the map is heavily mitigated. But yeah, Fnatic have been a big question mark around how well they will do throughout the rest of the split, and many still expect them to somehow make it to playoffs. So I've even heard many pro players say, like, Fnatic is still a really good team, you have to show that respect to them, and while they've started off slow, they will start to pick it back up, and this meta change could very well be the moment that they've been waiting for, and already we start to see them with a pretty good early game. So they're now sitting around a 600 gold lead. We haven't seen that much more action. Summoner spells are all back up for the side of Fnatic, so Xerxe hasn't been able to capitalize on all that, which means that Fnatic are now sitting primed and pretty, ready to go, and they have those teleports almost ready if they want to try and make another play elsewhere.
And both teams seem to be in a position where they can just scale up. You know, you're looking at these hyper carry AD carries in the late game, they can just get to 3 items. They don't really need to force any plays before that. But if a team were to force plays, if a team was to take the initiative, to take the step forward, Vedius, which team do you think it would be?
So we talked a little bit about it in the draft. Both compositions are very similar. The key difference is the fact that Fnatic have a winning top side of the map. And arguably Jinx into Sivir in a 1v1, Jinx should have an edge. But outside of that, like it's very even across the board. And so what Splyce need to be careful of is how strong this Jayce gets. And in an ideal world, Splyce will force more team fights than Fnatic will, because Kennen versus a Jayce, Kennen's always going to offer more value. But I think you're right in the sense that both teams can quite happily scale, and it's just about where the junglers want to prioritize. They have options in the early game. They can look to play around their solo laners, their bot laners. They have a wealth of choices. It's just a matter of where they want to force, when they want to force, and how they want to do it.
And Broxah seems to have had Xerxe's number thus far, counter-ganking up towards that top side, keeping Chachi on the ropes as well. And Xerxe has consistently been a strong early game jungler for Splyce, even if they haven't always snowballed those leads into a victory.
Yeah. My question is what happens in the mid game, because both teams have shown like rather peculiar mid lane performances. And to be a little bit more specific about that, when you set up for things like objectives, whether it be Baron, Dragon, towers, anything, you really need to have good control of your side waves, and you also need to make sure that when you're setting up for an objective, you're following all of the necessary steps. So pushing your waves in, getting the appropriate vision in at the right time, and then going back, making sure the waves are in the right spot, and then so on and so forth. And what you'll often see, especially for Splyce, is that they start with a couple of these steps, but then they almost get a little angsty, like they're not entirely sure, or they want to pull the trigger a little bit faster, which means that they'll skip the, oh, okay, we won't push bot wave all the way out. And then they'll group up with their team instead, and like, oh, now they've just lost all this experience, and they failed to force a fight. Okay, now we're actually down in experience in the top side of the map. Oh no, this is happening. Oh no, this is happening. And it's these small things that we see from both these teams, that ends up in these long, drawn-out games. And for Splyce, they've been really keen to try and tidy things up. You know, they want to turn an early game lead into a solid mid-game where they can better snowball. And Fnatic have just been looking for a better early game overall. Yeah. Because even if you could make an argument, oh, maybe their team fighting is fine, or maybe this is fine. Like, often they've just been falling behind so dramatically in the laning phase that we can never properly assess how good their mid-game truly is. But right now, they're set up for a good mid-game. They're getting control over the Drake right now, and you can see all this vision that's been set up. This is not skipping steps. This is how it's done properly. You utilize the pressure that you have in bottom mid, you set up the wards, and then you secure the Drake. And this is more of what many Fnatic fans want to be seeing from this team.
Well, it definitely is. You know, if you're a Fnatic fan, you should be very bolstered by how the beginning of this game has gone. It's about 600 gold lead or so, coming up to the 10-minute mark, which is good. Do want to bring attention to that middle lane, though. It looks like Nemesis is struggling a little bit into his rookie counterpart, Humanoid, because it's about 10 CS down or so, which could be due to that teleport, could be due to Humanoid maybe hitting a few more noxious blasts.
Yeah, the matchup, it can be challenging because Cassio will outrange the Lissandra. She's a fairly short-range champion, which means every time she approaches the wave, she'll get hit by the noxious blast, and she didn't have boots prior to this. Which meant that she was starting to struggle. So it doesn't really surprise me too much. What does surprise me is the top lane discrepancy. The fact that Vizicsacsi has built up such a massive CS discrepancy. This isn't typically what happens in the matchup. Jayce is usually the one generating a lot more pressure, but right now Fnatic have the right side on the bot lane.
Gotta go fast. Rekkles pops the ultimate on the hunt for some kills with the Predator coming in as well. You can see Nemesis positioning around there. Bwipo had actually moved down to an area of no vision, so he could teleport down to that play if they wanted to. And it seems like Fnatic have said, we're going to make plays around the bottom lane. That's our key objective. Not Broxah ganking top too much, not ganking mid too much, always looking for those bot lane plays. Now, Bwipo might have overextended just a little bit here as Xerxe does get the Mark of the Storm down, but Bwipo on the Jayce with a bit of lethality under his belt can just trade back into that Kennen.
So, a couple things to run through. Fnatic clearly playing around the bot side of the map, and I love the way in which Nemesis utilized the fact that Humanoid had just come back to base to then push in mid and roam bot. And remember, they'd set up all that vision earlier when they secured the Drake. That was still dark from the side of Splyce, which meant that they could get a good collapse off and actually get the flash away out from Norskeren, meaning that now the difference between the two 80 carries is about 400 gold, and a lot of that is coming off of turret plates. So that's really good. And then meanwhile, on the top side, this is more of what you expect from the matchup as
Bwipo just trades straight onto Xerxe, pops the slicing maelstrom. Jarvan just around the corner though. Bwipo needs to be a little bit cautious. Still has the flash, but Xerxe looking for the Mark of the Storm. Flashes away from it. Bwipo stunned up. Here comes Xerxe. There's the Cataclysm. Pulls it back in. And that is a great kill for Splyce in the top.
A little too early flash there from Bwipo, but Splyce find their first kill on the board. They have to invest quite a lot to get it, but it will also now open up the bot side of the map, and Fnatic very quick to pounce. You can already see both Hylissang and Nemesis making their way down. If they can, they want to try and secure the first tower of the game.
Yeah, looking for those plates as well. Already 3 down in this tower. Rekkles just going to continue to reap the benefits of that bottom lane. He's got 4 plates by himself. That is a monumental amount of gold.
You can see as well, like thinking more about it, the Jinx into Sivir matchup. Sivir can spell shield pretty much all of her skills, including the Mega Death Rocket, I think it's called. Super Mega Death Rocket, rather.
Yeah, not just the normal Mega Death Rocket.
Yes, the
super.
But Sivir can just spell shield all of it. So I'm quite interested to see why they decided to go for the Jayce. I could understand that maybe they wanted to try and match the wave clear. She does get better, especially once she gets the Hurricane. And she obviously can match in terms of the scaling, because she definitely hits very hard.
I guess in a team fight as well, you have that spread out damage that you wouldn't always have. And when you're playing against someone like a Sivir who has the Ricochet, that's what you want. An 800 gold disparity in between those AD carries. Top lane,
plates, man. 500
gold lead for Xerxe. But yeah, as you say, Fnatic has just been a lot better at getting plates. They're actually 5 plates to 1 up over Splyce at the moment. 5 plates to 2, sorry, that's 2 in the top lane.
Yeah, and this is going to be first tower for Fnatic as well, just before the 14-minute mark, which is when the plates drop. And I love the fact that they've been trying to funnel all this gold onto Rekkles as well. Fnatic definitely going back to their roots with the play around Fnatic style. But I need to go back and watch, because I wasn't paying super close attention to the top side of the map, how Bwipo has fallen behind in terms of farm this much.
So there have been a couple of times when he's moved out of the lane for a teleport play and then not teleported to the lane, which is why Xerxe has got that advantage. But as you say, it is still quite a big advantage for Xerxe in a lane that you expect the Jayce to win.
And it's one of those things where I think Fnatic made the decision, you know what, we're winning top. Like, that first blood means you actually shouldn't be that far behind Vizicsacsi. And even though he's picked up plates, we're actually fine sacrificing your lane a little bit to get bot further ahead. So the jungle resources and the mid lane resources were invested towards the bot side. And so while he has fallen behind a bit, Rekkles is definitely making up for it. Now the team overall is 1.8k gold up.
First item, Essence Reaver on the Sivir here from Rekkles. Does give you some critical strike chance, of course about 25%, and gets you all that basic attack mana refund. I think it's about 1.5% missing mana per auto attack, so it helps with the Sivir playstyle where you're spamming Ricochet, spamming Boomerang Blades as much as possible, and having a little bit of crit chance is always a boon.
Yeah, exactly that. You hit the nail on the head, Medic. It's quite interesting. We don't typically see this on the Sivir, but with the itemization changes, it suits her nicely. And now Fnatic looking to secure themselves another tower. So this is very reminiscent of what we saw when Fnatic played XL. They got an early game lead. They leveraged their strong side of the map around the rest of the map, and slowly they've been pushing in their advantages. And again, keep your eyes on the minimap. You can see good vision being set up towards the top side in the river. Allows Broxah to get an uncontested Rift Herald, as we see Xerxe look for a gank in mid, but not going to be able to lock anyone down.
Nemesis is doing a good job of escaping. That bot lane tower to go down to Splyce as well, but it's a very strong start for Fnatic. 15 minutes in, they have a 2,000 gold lead. Your AD carry's getting fed already at that one completed item. And overall, if you're Fnatic, you're looking at it being like, oh, maybe 9.3 is our patch after all.
Could be. I mean, the fact that Splyce have not been able to find those successful early plays. Imagine if Jarvan gets a kill, or at least both summoners in the bot side of the map and Fnatic don't react, how differently that 2 versus 2 could have played out. But the thing we also have to remember is that both teams do have strong late game. Yeah. Right? Kennen in team fights, Jayce on a side lane. Even though Fnatic have an advantage right now, I would not say that it's snowballed to the point at which Splyce can't come back. Yeah. You know, I still look at this Jinx, and while she hasn't completed her first item, we heard from Ender at the beginning of the day that the transition between items feels that much better right now for AD carries than it did before, because you're kind of waiting for the 3 before you did anything in the game. Now you can have 1 or 2, and you actually have a lot more agency and impact over the game itself.
It's an interesting one, though, because we have seen most AD carries go for the IE first because of the extra critical strike damage that you get out of it. And we're not actually seeing that from either of these AD carries at the moment. It looks like Kobbe is going to go towards the BF into Runan's build. Of course, could still complete his IE, but with so many daggers sitting in his inventory, I expect it to be a Runan's Hurricane.
Well, you already talked about it earlier. I think that the Essence Reaver just synergizes nicely with Sivir. It really reinforces her wave-clearing tendencies, and especially at this portion of the game when they have pressure everywhere, they just want to keep pushing, sieging onto these towers. And look, they've already got the Rift Herald in mid. That's going to knock onto the tower, and Fnatic will secure their 3rd tower of the game. So I think in terms of itemization, that makes sense. And Kobbe, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually went for something like a... I mean, you see the double daggers, you think Runan's Hurricane. Like, I thought maybe he would go for the static shift to just add a little more wave clear to his belt. So that means he can try and match the Sivir, but we shall see how things go. Ooh, good interrupt there from
Bwipo could keep chasing. Doesn't quite know where Xerxe is, so doesn't want to go for the full invest. But second dragon in the game as well for Fnatic. Very clean game from them so far. Not looking like a team that's sitting in 7th, 8th spot. Looking much more like a team that's contending for playoffs.
Definitely improvement. They still got to end the game, Medic.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Right? They still have neutral objectives to play around. We want to see them do it by the book, set up the vision control, go for the Baron if they need to.
Taking the first towers, once you have a lead, arguably is the easy part. Okay. This next bit is when it gets difficult, because this is when skipping steps, the things that we talk about, is when things become a problem. Yep. And so we have our handbook primed and ready. We'll be assessing them on their ability to take objectives and whatnot. And if
this is Professius.
But we'll see how things go. For the time being, Fnatic sit on a very healthy gold lead. They're about 3,000 in the lead, and they're happy to keep scaling. They can keep Bwipo off on the side lane. Ideally, you want to see him towards the bot side of the map as Baron now starts to become a thing that both these teams are thinking about. If possible, Fnatic will want to try and steal objectives away from the enemy jungle, just further increase the gold disparity. Whereas Splyce, they're going to be looking for a pick, and they may have just found one.
Catch out Broxah. There's redemption coming out from him as well to make a death rocket connects, but it's not enough damage onto Broxah. He will get away with a Ragnarok, but that is the jungler forced away. Bit of poke coming in from the side from Bwipo as well. Maybe Splyce will push this mid lane. Instead, they say, okay, Baron up in 2 minutes. Let's get control of this area.
Well, they also need to catch that top wave as well, and this is the other advantage that Fnatic have. They're running the double teleport. They can keep Nemesis towards the top side of the map, whereas Humanoid, if he tries to go there, he could be in danger. But speaking of danger,
Slicing Maelstrom comes out from Xerxe, very quick with the phase rush, but here come Rekkles and Hylissang. Decide they can't quite catch Pikachu today, and he escapes from the Pokeball.
And this is perfect to come back to the phase rush question that you asked a little bit earlier, Medic. Running Klepto into a champion that you can't really harass isn't very efficient. So the reason why you're on phase rush against Jayce is he actually has a lot of mobility and kiting power, and if you're able to proc the phase rush, which should be very easy on the Kennen, you get a lot of additional movement speed that helps mitigate that kiting power about, and even the chasing power that Jayce does have. So in situations like that, he's able to escape. So I quite like the phase rush. I think it was a good pickup. And now Humanoid could be in some danger.
Yeah, Bwipo just jumps in straight into the Petrifying Gaze, but should have enough damage to clean up Humanoid here. No flash will get him in the end. Good stuff from Fnatic with a great teleport play to the top lane.
So now they lose on teleport, but they still have one available on Nemesis. Humanoid overextends a little bit, costs both his summoner spells. And Fnatic, they're going to keep up the pressure. They'll be able to drop a couple wards in the enemy jungle. I want to see them move back a little bit, just sweep out the river, make sure that they have control of this objective. You can see that Hylissang has just used his sweeper, and is going to use it to the entrance right now, as Fnatic look to push up towards the top side.
This is that possible split push that we talked about in Picks and Bans as well. We said that Jayce can go into a side lane by himself. It looks like he's teaming up with Nemesis more than anything else at the moment, and you're letting Rekkles on the Sivir just continually push in the mid wave. Keep pushing it in, keep Splyce pinned back so that they can't get that deep vision, so they can't spot you out when you eventually do something like the Baron.
So here we see Xerxe just carrying out the wards the top side. Good TP as well. Humanoid just under the tower. He even takes a tower shot, and Xerxe feels that he can't offer anything because the pings are coming down in their jungle, but the rest of Fnatic are collapsing. So Humanoid thinks he's safe because he has his teammate, but in reality, Fnatic are the ones in a better position to find that collapse, and then they find themselves another kill.
Top 10 LEC betrayals there from Xerxe. He's like, I'm helping, I'll clear the ward. Can't do it yet. Xerxe trading onto Bwipo in the bottom lane, but Bwipo would just land that accelerated shock blast. And that's the thing with Jayce, right? You have your kind of trading window, and then after that, you don't really have super sustained damage unless you can switch into the ranged form and just poke.
I would argue that against the Kennen, he has way more sustained.
He has a lot more damage than the Kennen, 100%.
But I would be careful with that statement too, because like it depends on what you mean by damage, then, Medic. Because like 100 to 0 damage, Kennen definitely wins.
Yeah, burst damage.
Yes, right. Whereas if the two are just hitting each other, Jayce will win because he's using his auto attacks, right?
Damage.
So in that situation, the reason why Vizicsacsi had to disengage because he used all of his burst and he only got him down to about 50% health, and he's like, I can't kill him, so he backed away. And the Merc Treads were a big reason for that as well. They mitigate the amount of crowd control. But yes, in terms of sustained damage, Bwipo definitely was going to win that one. So Vizicsacsi was like, yeah, nope, I'm out of here.
Has the teleport to join the next fight, but no slicing mouse from Baron. Up 21 minutes or so in the game. Fnatic have been able to extend that goal lead to about 3,500, sorry. So it's not monumental, it's not massive, and against the good scaling that we talked about on Splyce, Fnatic have to be a little bit wary as to how they take the next steps of this game. 100%,
100%. They have to be patient, they have to be calm. I really like with how they've played the game so far. I love the setup. They've been utilizing vision very effectively. They've played around objectives very cleanly, like we've seen them to secure all the Drakes right so far. They have no vision around the Ocean Drake. They've been investing it towards Baron, but you can already see Broxah has gone back to base. He's picked up a control ward. Hylissang is sitting on 2 control wards as well. Vizicsacsi's in trouble.
Yeah, trying to get away. Does use the flash in the end. Misses with the Windows Pipe, but Nemesis here on the chase. Glacial Path will come in, and Xerxe is done for. Another kill for Fnatic. 3 on the board for them now, and Rekkles actually gets his first of the game.
And this makes a very easy Dragon take for Fnatic. Big misplay there from Vizicsacsi. Even cost him his flash. Not sure why he was perusing through the enemy jungle. Fnatic very quick to punish, so they're sitting in a good spot right now.
It feels so much more coordinated from Fnatic as well. It's much more like they have a solid game plan coming into the day. Rapid fire cannon second on Rekkles for that extra range on his first auto attack when he wants, and more crit chance.
It's because the ricochet is centers really well as well. So if you proc it and then you hit someone who's under their tower, then you can get that bounce underneath the tower as well.
Pinball underneath the tower.
But I mean, like, I'd like to say more, but it's very clean game so far from Fnatic.
It's clean, but kind of slow at some points as well, because they're doing it by the numbers. They're waiting until their numbers come up.
It's the nature of their composition as well. You know, like the Jayce, he's hit the Black Cleaver plus the Ghost Blade. Before we get more into that, yeah, Vizicsacsi, he pushes him bot, and I guess he tries to group up with his team mid, but he should see on the minimap that his team isn't in a position to even try and help him if they could. They didn't have mid priority there. And the rest of his team just, yeah, I don't know. That was a bad play. Xerxe.
Yeah, I agree. He has now got the Spellbinder, so maybe can have a little bit more impact in fights, a bit of extra movement speed.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in terms of team fights, I'm still, like, I'm optimistic that Splyce can do damage. Like, the Jinx now on 2 items, the Infinity Edge and Runans. I would expect her to go for the Static Shiv next. We'll keep an eye on what she does decide to go for. But you've actually got Rekkles coming out with the Infinity Edge soon. So should Splyce wait that much longer to try and force a team fight, I think they could be in a lot of danger. But again, with Vizicsacsi not having his flash, it becomes very easy for him to actually set up a successful team fight, or a flank rather.
A bit of baiting around the Baron for the moment. Fnatic just trying to clear out as many wards as possible. Have triple sweeper on their side with the Oracle's alteration, so a lot of ability to gain vision control and a few control wards in their back pockets as well. But the question always becomes, do you do every single step in the handbook, or do you miss one and then the enemy team strikes? Because we saw Misfits last week against Splyce. Misfits got Elder Dragon, they got Baron, they got an inhibitor, and they all got out alive. And still, Splyce just caught them on that one misstep that meant that they won the game.
That was a sad game to watch.
If you're a Misfits fan, if you're a Splyce fan, you're over the moon.
Just from, yeah. Anyway.
Minions.
Splyce will secure their second tower of the game.
Minions?
Yep, that's good for
them. You gotta praise them, Vedi. Come on.
I like the fact that, Nemesis could be in some trouble right now.
Goes into the Frozen Tomb. Humanoid and Xerxe on the chase here. Norskeren on the flank as well. Xerxe jumps into the backline. Norskeren flashes forward. There's a hook as well. Lands in. Cataclysm used. Xerxe so low. Bwipo free to open up from the side of this fight. Humanoid. Rekkles gets one already as Xerxe goes down, as well as Hylissang. There's a slicing mouse from Norskeren so low. Xerxe just about getting away. It's all on Kobbe. Open up with the big guns. Super Mega Death Rocket. Kobbe can just sweep his way through the Fnatic front line. Broxah's going to follow as well. Bwipo trying to get away, but the zap with the chase. And Bwipo does escape, but it shows if the AD carries alive on the back line, that is how you can win these team fights.
And it's literally just like we talked about, Medic. You have to respect the team fight power of Splyce. The two items were done for Kobbe. He still does damage, and his positioning was great in that team fight. Things actually looked really good initially for Fnatic. The way in which Splyce were all bunched up in this choke point, meaning Lissandra can get into the middle of all of them, and things look great. So, the first misstep here from Nemesis is he takes way too much damage from Nemesis, but a Humanoid rather, before the rest of his team can show up. Look at the positioning of Sivir on the mini-map as well. Not even involved in the fight. Now Rekkles joins. Now Bwipo is hit. A lot of ultimates haven't been used yet, okay? So Xerxe and Hylissang first drop. And then you think at this point, Rekkles can clean up the fight, but Norskeren gets a really clutch hook just before he goes into Zhonya's, allowing Kobbe to get at least 3 autos off before Rekkles can do anything. So he gets chunked out, he's forced to retreat, and then Kobbe, uncontested on the backline, can just clean up the fight, and now he's on the run.
On the hunt used here as they chase onto Xerxe. No flash on the Kennen. Nemesis with the Winter Spike, that is going to be a very dead Kennen, but Fnatic able to answer back. They keep doing this, they keep finding little picks, and we talked about how both the teams, after those first set of towers go down, have been a little bit lackluster.
It's going to be another 40-minute game, Medic. It's going to be another 40
minutes. I want it, Vedi. I want 40 minutes of this. AD carries just pew, 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 pew,
pew. So, Fnatic just going to start the Baron up here. Vizicsacsi's dead, he doesn't have teleport. They can force the numbers back. And Xerxe and Humanoid have just gone back to base.
Here we go.
This isn't the fastest, but Rekkles with 3 items. They're feeling really good about this. Bwipo is even trying to zone them away.
Norskeren and Kobbe on their way, though. Bwipo off towards the backside of this fight. The ward goes in. They know it's down to about 4,000 HP. The Baron's still there. That misses Xerxe. Xerxe can jump in, though. Not going to do it yet. 3,000 HP. Broxah still on it. Fnatic going to turn. Bwipo jumps onto Kobbe. Just kill the AD carry. That's all you need to do. And they get Humanoid to follow up as well. Great flank from Fnatic.
Exactly that, Medic. Bwipo finds the carry and eliminates him immediately. Jayce going full assassin mode there onto a Kobbe that had no summoner spells. They find the kill, and why it will not result in a Baron though. So Fnatic, they just grab a couple of kills. Can't quite convert it into any objectives though.
Let's have a quick check on the state of the game as we get towards that 27-minute mark. Had a lot of fighting in the last couple of minutes. There's still only a 4,000 gold lead for Fnatic. Only about 10% of their total gold. 3 items on the AD carry though. Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver, and the Rapid Fire Cannon. You've got a big mid laner as well in the form of Nemesis. Bwipo here, perfect positioning.
Yes, exactly that. And he's utilizing the control wards that they have littered in the enemy jungle, and then he just sneaks in from behind. He knows Fnatic is in the front, and he sees Kobbe. Norskeren can't provide the peel. Instant kill there from the side of Fnatic, and they even take out Humanoid as well, who didn't have flash, but he did end up using the cleanse as well. But again, though, they don't convert that into any objectives. In an ideal world, they would have gone back towards the Baron and secured it, but with Xerxe still alive, they didn't want to take the risk. So they're going to reset. Yeah. They're going to look for a Cloud Drake right now.
They are building up to a 5 Elder Drake win condition as well, though, with the next one spawning. Have got all 4 of them so far in this game. In a very strong spot if you are a Fnatic fan. Splyce, though, They've been in this position before and been able to fight back. You have 3 items now completed on Kobbe.
What does Xerxe say? 35 minutes, no team can beat them?
No team wins after 35 minutes against Splyce. They're just like, you have to get to 35 minutes and then they win.
And it was, he said only G2 and Schalke had a 50% chance of winning, right? So, I had a quick look at the gold. If our observers would be so kind to swap over for us, you'll notice that Rekkles has quite a healthy CS, gold advantage.
Just a slight one.
Over his lane opponent. And then I realized
got 60 CS.
341 farm. This is what we call the Uzi effect, right? Where you just funnel and channel farm. And we are going very old school Fnatic. Humanoid is in trouble right now.
Caught out, doesn't have the cleanse as he used it last time. There's the Frozen Tomb. The chase is on. And they gotta go fast comp from Fnatic. Gets themselves another kill.
Yeah, and Splyce just keep getting caught out from the side of Fnatic. We've seen this multiple times from Humanoid and Vizicsacsi. With no summoner spells, they're not showing enough respect to the mobility that the Sivir can get, and paired up with the Lissandra as well, huge pick potential on the side of Fnatic. So now they can look to go threaten the Baron once again.
Here we go, Xerxe chased across, misses the accelerated shot blast. There's a Glacial Fissure. Chase in from Nemesis, but maybe Hylissang's gone too far. Slicing Master's gonna come down. Already Xerxe down, and now Rekkles just opens up with those boomerangs. Needs one more connection on Xerxe for the stun. Kobbe! Holy hell, that was a shit ton of damage! Nemesis under the tower as well. There's the Cataclysm. That's a kill onto Xerxe. And Fnatic just clean up in the top lane.
Beautiful stuff there from the side of Fnatic. They find themselves 3 quick kills. Humanoid is respawning, but the jungler is gone, which means that Fnatic make their way back towards the Baron, and this should be a very easy objective for them to secure.
Easy pickings for Fnatic. We wondered if they had enough engage in their composition when it came through the draft, but that Lissandra pick is working out wonders for them. Teamed up with the acceleration gate, teamed up with the on the hunt. Fnatic get the Baron 30 minutes in, and they are looking in a very healthy spot.
Yeah. Splyce, they haven't been able to stall out to that 35-minute mark. Fnatic have been in full control of the game so far, and while Splyce did find that one successful team fight, they haven't really been able to convert it anywhere else on the map, and a large part of that is just Fnatic finding pick after pick after pick, and now Rekkles 6, 1, and 3. He's sitting on just under 16,000 gold. 4 items have been completed. This is the Rekkles of old. This is the Rekkles that many Fnatic fans were waiting to see, and he is one of the highest levels in the game. Fnatic looking primed to take this game.
I think you could even say this is the Rekkles that he was waiting to see again. You know, at the start of the split, he was saying, I need to be the one to step up and carry. He's doing that for his team this game, but all of Fnatic's team has played exceptionally well. Broxah with the early game jungle pathing to lock out Xerxe. Bwipo, after being put behind in the top lane a little bit, just continues to wail away on Xerxe. Bwipo brings down the hammer, can't quite get the final shot, and maybe he's overextended. Flashes for it. Xerxe behind him, but look at this, they're both just running away from the chase. Bwipo on the chase. There's the redemption as well. The hook comes out. Bwipo will be kept alive with that redemption. Here comes the chase from Nemesis. That's 1. Frozen Tomb used on himself. Keeps himself alive for the moment. Shut down from the Jinx. But here comes Hylissang with Glacial Fissure. Gets a double knockup. Norskeren has to flash away, but Humanoid's already done. Kobbe chased underneath the tower by Broxah. And Fnatic aren't stopping. They continue their onslaught.
3 members are dead on the side of Splyce, and Fnatic still have 4 members primed and ready to go. The Baron buff is in their back pockets, and there are plenty of minion waves for them to just look to try and end the game right now.
Just looking for that push in the mid lane. Still a minute and a half on that Baron power play. Our Baron buff, they're just going to go by the numbers, Vedius. We said we wanted to see it. They're going to go up towards this top lane inhibitor as well, and can even just push in with the rest of it, because you've still got 30 seconds on Humanoid, 9 seconds on Xerxe. Fnatic looking to secure their 3rd win of the split. For now, they'll back away, but you have to feel they are very close to seeing that victory screen.
Playing this one full tutorial style, Fnatic looking good. Splyce, unfortunately, they've kind of ran out of options at this point in time, and you can see here Vizicsacsi, he didn't have his ultimate available. He held on to the flash for as long as possible. He doesn't get the lantern from Norskeren, and the rest of Splyce are like, okay, Fnatic have teleport, they have the ability to collapse. We just want to get out of this situation as fast as possible. And they think, oh, they can kill Bwipo, but that redemption buys him a little bit more time to get that extra damage out onto Xerxe. And then Xerxe is Nemesis rather is able to get to safety while the rest of Fnatic clean up the fight.
Look at the level disparity between the AD carries as well. Rekkles is 17, Kobbe is 14. Funneling all of this CS, all of this gold on towards Rekkles. We saw it work for Fnatic in the past. It seems to be working out incredibly well for them again today.
And the funny thing is, Kobbe hasn't even been farming poorly.
Yep.
335
it's going at 10 a minute, right?
33 minutes.
10 a minute is good.
Fnatic have just funneled all their resources into not Nemesis. They've funneled them all into Rekkles. He is looking good right now. I don't know if Splyce really have enough wave clear to be able to stall this one out. But
We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know if Fnatic need to play towards the Cloud Drake that's currently alive. There's 3 exposed. Well, everything is gone. They can just keep pushing into the base. Eventually, the Super Minions should overwhelm Splyce, and Splyce are going to be forced into a fight that they should be able to win.
Here we go. Fnatic in the base. Glacial Path comes out from Nemesis, just forcing Norskeren away, but here come the Super Minions. Double minions in each way. Bottom mid pushing in. There's the on the hunt. They're chasing them in. That's a Glacial Path as well. Not quite going to connect. First Nexus Tower the target. Bwipo trying to get a bit of damage down there. Xerxe goes in, but Norskeren's so low. Glacial Fissure lands. Once again, it's Humanoid that's caught out. Xerxe jumps onto the backline. Nemesis and Hylissang have gone all the way onto the backline of Splyce, and they get 2. Rekkles is dominating. Easy picking for Fnatic. Only Kobbe survives, and they can't quite clean him up in the base. They get him anyway. Fnatic with the ace to round it out, and they are back to winning ways.
Great game there from the side of Fnatic. Very clean from start to finish. They had 1 bad fight, but outside of that, everything looked good.
Yeah.
We saw great teamwork. We saw a lot of punishes. Every time Splyce made a small mistake, Fnatic were very quick to react to it. They seem to have found a draft that works out nicely for them. They played a lot around the bot lane. Sure, Bwipo had to kind of suffer a little bit as a result, but he still made it work exceptionally well. Fnatic looked very, very good this game. And unfortunately, like, we didn't talk much about Splyce because it felt like Splyce didn't really do that much. Yeah. It just felt like every time that they tried, Fnatic stopped them. And it wasn't like Xerxe wasn't active in the early game. We saw at least 3 ganks from him in both bot, top, and mid. But he could never translate it into anything for the side of Splyce, and that meant that they couldn't really force anything come the mid game. So,
and it was often that when he did gank, Broxah was there first. Broxah was waiting for him, or we saw just Fnatic able to react just that little bit quicker. Splyce didn't play a bad game, just Fnatic played very, very clean. You have to wonder for Splyce, you know, they are sitting at 5-4 now, looking like perhaps the gatekeepers that they were last year as well, the team that kind of separates the good teams from the great teams in the LEC.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a curse for Splyce for a long time, where they often just, they can never really beat the teams above them, and then they often consistently beat the teams below them. And then this brings into question, where is Fnatic right now? Is this new meta better for them? Will it enable them to better play around their strategies? Or did they just get a lucky level 1? Did they just go, you know, we're just going to overcommit, send double TP bot? Is this something that could have been punished harder? Yeah. It's difficult to assess. Overall, I think that they played very well with the leads that they had. Very patient play. I like their team fighting. The fact that they funneled everything into Rekkles is something that they found success with in the past. Is this a strategy that they can rely on? That's just something that many fans can look forward to over the next couple of weeks.
Exactly, that's the question. And whether you're against a team that doesn't play the same style as you, whether someone drafts an early game composition into that comp, maybe things would have been a little bit different. But if you're a Fnatic fan coming into the halfway point of the split, I think that performance should leave you pretty happy.
Yeah, I would definitely be very happy with that. And we already heard the analysts talking about it on ReadyCheck as well. If Fnatic want to make it to playoffs, there are certain games that are must-wins. This was definitely a very important win for them, you know, and if they still want to stand a chance of it, sorry, I needed a cough. If they still want to stand a chance of making playoffs, even though it's a long way away, they need to kind of maintain this level of performance. But if they're definitely on the right track, with them on the upward trend, with Origin on the upward trend as well, that middle of the pack now just continues to get more and more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic basically have to reverse their win-loss ratio from the first half of the split to the second half of the split if they want to make it. Usually it's about 9 wins that takes you to that playoff spot. But if you want your favorite to win Kia player of the game, you need to head on over to @LOL Esports and vote. We've narrowed it down to Bwipo, Nemesis, and Rekkles. I wonder who's going to win.
So I think it was a team effort overall.
Oh, 100%. 100%
you know,
was a team
I
effort.
think it's much harder to pick a single player. But for me, Nemesis was someone I think had a very solid game. I loved his Lissandra this game. He tanked a lot of ganks. His utility in teamfights was impressive. Overall, I think you should consider Nemesis, even though I know you're going to vote for Rekkles anyway.
We'll have to wait and see if everyone does just vote for Rekkles. But for more on Fnatic's win, let's head it over to Laure and their top laner.
Thank you very much, guys, and thank you, Bwipo, for joining me. It feels like an easy one for you guys. I mean, you had the perfect draft to do it. Late game damage, Olaf pressure in the early game. You guys focus so much on objectives, even though it hasn't been your good side lately. How did you make all this happen, especially against Splyce?
Honestly, I feel like all of us felt like the past few weeks weren't a good representation of how good we actually are. So we just went back to the basics, tried to think of, okay, what worked for us last year? And one of the biggest issues we had is that we ended up drafting lanes that all needed jungle on stage. So in this game, for example, you have Lissandra, which is much more self-sufficient. Jayce is a really good matchup where he doesn't need as much jungle help. And then we can focus on the bot lane. So, I mean, investing 2 teleports at level 3 was maybe a bit much, but I think you got the idea of where we wanted to go there.
I mean, we rarely see you this year on carry champions, and I was really happy to see you on Jayce instead of tanks as all time. Can we expect more carry champions for you guys?
Like I said, I think what's most important for us right now is that we actually identify like how many lanes we want to play around. Because I feel like we were drafting, even when I was playing a tank, I need some jungle pressure, right? I need some help to play those tanks. So we feel like some of the carry champions like Jayce, if he has a good matchup, he can do his own job, right? He can be self-sustaining. So in that sense, yeah, I think I'll be playing a few more champions that are good on their own.
Let's get back a bit in the game. You guys dropped a team fight, setting up the vision at Baron, maybe being a bit hasty here. What was the communication between you guys at this moment to just grab back the game in your hands?
Honestly, it was really hectic because after we lost the fight against the Jinx, when she flashed in and killed us all, it was pretty scary to play the game. We weren't sure what was going to happen, but all in all, we were just really focused on the summoner cooldowns, and we knew that with our comp, if we just ran at them with Sivir speed, then we would kill either any of them up front because the only frontliner was really Jarvan. So honestly, we just at some point we were just, why don't we just run it down and just go on these guys?
And last question for you. I was talking to Broxah before the game. He told me that you needed confidence, a bit more confidence. Is it finally the win that's going to give you confidence back and reach playoffs?
Honestly, I think it will help a lot for my other teammates. Okay. For me personally, it's like an extra boost because I got to do it on a champion that honestly I feel like most people considered me to be good at in the past, but I never actually got to translate on stage. Every time I played Jayce, I feel like I was lackluster. And even this game, I honestly, my laning phase was very poor, but you know, I pulled it back afterwards, and then I got some value out of the Jayce pick in the later stages of the game, surprisingly. And
you managed to pick up the game in the end, so congratulations again on this one. And for more on this victory, let's send it back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Laure. Congratulations to Bwipo and Fnatic. I think for Bwipo, helped a little bit that Xerxe's Kennen left a lot to be desired, I think, especially in the later stages of the game.
All I'm hearing from you guys is excuses
don't look
right
so
now.
smug. Don't look so smug. Of course, yes, you predicted the Fnatic win. And Ender, I think you and I were saying that had we heard Broxah's interview pre-game, we would have been a little more confident. But tell me, what went wrong? Let's start with the draft. 9.3, we saw things that you were not super in love with from Fnatic, you know, with the Jayce and the Sivir early on. Talk me through what you liked and disliked.
Yeah, so Fnatic, right off the bat, I think the thing that surprised me here on the desk was the fact that they actually weren't going for the narrative we were sort of building up, which was play for this late game, this very strong team fight later on. Instead, they had a lot of tools with the Sivir, the Olaf, the Lissandra that wanted to accelerate and have a super explosive mid-game with fighting around Baron buff where you can sort of just run people down that are just slightly out of position. And we saw that Splyce did miss position, and Fnatic absolutely did punish.
See, for me, there were so many points in this draft where I'm watching it. Like, normally when you watch a Fnatic draft, you're like, ooh, and it just, like, it progressively gets worse. But this one, you're like, nice, wow. First and foremost, the Braum priority pick. So when you have a Braum priority pick versus something like a Kennen, which Kennen is so S tier right now that the teams are considering, Braum dissuades Ezreal. It's harder to pick an Ezreal into a Braum, and so already you're starting to pinch that AD carry pool a little bit more. Then you have the blind pick of the Kennen, which opens up for the counter pick draft.
Exactly.
Bwipo said the lane phase didn't quite work for him, but I'm like, okay, you dissuade Ezreal, you get a comfort pick for Rekkles on Sivir, you counter pick your top laner, and then he hovered Zach, but he locked in Olaf. I was like, even if it's into a Jarvan, I don't care. Playmaking jungler, well done, Fnatic.
And it managed to work out. Fnatic absolutely got ahead, I think, the very first blood where Rekkles and Hyli were able to outplay the Xerxe gank. Definitely made me a little uncomfortable. I think I threw my prediction out the window immediately after that. Ender was holding some faith until a team fight later. We've got 2 replays to look at. Let's pull the first one up. This was, of course, Fnatic and Splyce dancing around the tri-bush just before Baron, and there were some strong feelings around on my side, especially Xerxe's like re-engage later, and Rekkles maybe not stepping too far forward.
Yeah, and right off the bat, it looks like Splyce have a good position, and then once you get them trapped in this corridor, I'm like, yes, let's go, Xerxe, put down the Maelstrom, let's go for a team fight, but then they kite back, and it looks like it's going poorly up until the re-engage.
Yeah, and Vedius, excuse me, mentioned this on cast. The fact that Xerxe didn't have his flash available meant that the Kennen couldn't follow up into the backline, but we do get those great, big, explosive, get excited Jinx rockets that come over over there because it was also the Jarvan ultimate that zoned out Rekkles. He couldn't turn that corner because he had this massive terrain corner in front of him. So while everyone was grouped up, Kobbe got to make use of it, but Sivir didn't.
Yeah, and of course, the next replay that we have, Frost, you're going to love this one.
Yeah, I am.
Because it is Splyce getting bullied by a creative pick. This is not a playbook Baron, and Bwipo catches Splyce by surprise.
And that's the thing. Splyce is like, we know that they're doing Baron. We've got our jungler in position. We can contest this. Surprise! Like, here comes Bwipo around the corner. Beautifully executed because he had the control vision to get in. And just a great creative play from Fnatic to mix up a very standard Baron play.
Yeah, and at this point, I was still like, man, you know, Splyce, maybe they have a chance. They denied the Baron, but it just was plays like this over and over again where they kept finding picks onto individual members of Splyce that resulted in this substantial gold lead at the end.
And the thing is while I'm very high on mine and Fnatic, you can see it in the graph, the gold difference over time. This is how like fans should be ramping on the team. Like, yes, 9.3, it came just in time. You cannot script this shit better right now for Fnatic to make a playoff run. That said, this was against Splyce. This is against a team who stylistically was going to give this to Fnatic. Globally, we've still seen a lot of the LCK and the LPL playing very fast, very early, aggressive compositions. So I don't know if this is going to be a trend for Fnatic, that they're just going to ramp up really hard here or run into an early game comp and fall over.
Thing is, we talked about it in the pregame. If you guys didn't catch it, go take a look at how Fnatic have to play the rest of the split to actually make playoffs. And this was one of the must-win games. I personally was a little disappointed. I think I've seen Splyce play cleaner, more controlled. I think I've seen them make less mistakes. And Ender, you and I were lamenting some of the ganks he was putting down, some of the decision-making for Xerxe. I think he used 4 or 5 slicing maelstroms defensively to save his own life. And if you're using that on your like primary backline assassin type of mage, it's not going well for the team.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like the matchup into Jayce as Kennen is certainly a hard one, but it was just Xerxe being too far forward, mispositioning consistently that meant that he didn't have his ultimate or he didn't have his flash, and that means Splyce doesn't have a team fight, and they need that ult to be successful.
Of course, this does mean that Rekkles manages to bounce back or ricochet himself back to a win, obviously, with Sivir. 916 plus 24 CSD, which is phenomenal. And I really liked his build. We were talking quite a lot about it, some of the changes. He went Estus Reaver into Rapid Fire Cannon. What do you make of his Sivir game?
The thing is he had double longsword into Xerxe, so it was all about pushing the early game towers. You had what, Ender, you pointed out the 4 control wards on the bottom side of the map.
4 wards in just the river to help him push.
And I think holistically, Bwipo said it, you know, it was pretty obvious that at the early level 3, when you had double teleport coming down, that it was going to be all about Rekkles. He's on a signature champion. Everything was set up for him, and he finally, you know, put the money where the mouth was. He showed up and did what he needed to do.
And you know that the game is going well for Fnatic when a Sivir has 3 turret plates at the 10-minute mark.
Yep.
That should never happen, but Fnatic set Rekkles up absolutely to succeed.
Okay, so we're very happy with Fnatic. I think we've covered their win extensively. I'm a little more bummed on Splyce now. They're losing a little bit more. I was more excited about the team at the beginning of the year. Frosk, we sort of coined that phrase with your perspective of them being the gatekeepers. This team that maybe was 6th place for a long time and now is challenging above. Are they still the gatekeepers after the first round run is completed? They're 5 wins and 4 losses.
I mean, frankly, in the standings right now, yes, because they're guarding the top 4. That said, again, I think that there are plenty of members that you can turn toward to be that X factor to take Splyce to the next stage. I personally think it's on Xerxe. We saw him attempt very early ganks this time around. Rekkles managed to outplay it. Norskeren maybe a little bit off the timings there, but I like the idea, and I still see a lot of good things from Splyce. They are trying to play the early game. This is not just a late game team.
No, definitely not. They will be playing Fnatic again in week 9 of the split. We'll see whether or not Fnatic can climb their way up into the playoffs and maybe take that spot from Splyce. Key player of the game.
Shocker.
No surprise, it is Rekkles. He picked up 49% of the votes. The rest obviously split between Nemesis as well as Bwipo. So congratulations to Rekkles. Congratulations to Fnatic. They finished the first round robin, 3 wins, 6 losses. Coming up next, XL Esports rookie mid laner special makes his LEC debut against YoungBuck and Origin. Don't go anywhere.
Double TP burn here. Remember, Norskeren almost stunned up. He will get locked down underneath the tower, and that's the fun to Fnatic. Humanoid. Rekkles gets one already as Xerxe goes down, as well as Hylissang. There's a slicing mouse from Norskeren, so low Chachi just about getting away. It's all on Kobbe. Open up with the big guns. Super Mega Death Rocket. Kobbe can just sweep his way through the Fnatic front line. Fnatic in a turn. Bwipo jumps onto Kobbe. Just kill the AD carry. That's all you need to do. And they get Humanoid to follow up as well.
Spinning her. No flash Jinx. I'll go. No flash Jinx. No flash Jinx. She's 1 HP.
Good job.
Nice. I'm packing. Burn.
Down there, Xerxe goes in, but Norskeren so low. Glacial Fisher lands. Once again, it's Humanoid that's caught out. Xerxe jumps onto the back line. Nemesis and Hylissang have gone all the way onto the back line of Splyce, and they get two. Rekkles is dominating. Easy picking for Fnatic.